Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Coated Steel, and welcome back to another App Inventor tutorial. This is going to be your second one, and it will be on creating a user interface for like a password login screen and stuff like that. So it took me a little bit to decide that I was going to do that for this episode because I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do next, because there's, like I said, there's so much to this interface, and you can create obviously a very complicated app. Last time I showed you just basically it was almost a useless kind of tutorial, just kind of introducing you to some of the user interface options that you have, and then just creating a simple counter that incremented and decremented when you hit a button, showed you the different button parameters that you could attack, like long clicks, short clicks, ups and downs, stuff like that. So this time, I wanted to take a somewhat different approach and actually give you guys something that you could actually use to create a starting to your first app. So, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to delete this label here. Down here, duh. Yeah. Alright, we're going to delete all of this stuff really fast, and we're just going to start from a fresh screen because it's always just best to start that way. So, this episode is going to be a two-part series. Actually, it's going to be just a two-part episode. I'm going to show you how to create a basic login interface stuff, and then the next part of it, we're going to add a little more complexity to it and allow the person to actually save their information, like the password or stuff like that that they typed in. I want to allow that option. So I'm going to show you guys first. This time it's going to create, it's just going to be an interface that allows you to type some stuff in and hit login, and it won't save your information when you log out of the application or anything like that. And then next time I'm going to show you how to actually save it if you wanted to create a save ability for your login information or do something kind of like that. So to start off with how we're going to do this, we actually need three components for the user interface, the GUI. I guess the graphical user interface is what it would actually be called. That's what this box is here. This is the graphical user interface. This is what the user will see when the application is loaded. They're not going to see the stuff in the blocks editor, obviously. They're going to see just the graphical user interface. So, let's actually get started. We're going to drag out the text box. And then we're going to drag in the password text box. And then we're going to drag in a button. And then we're actually going to bump it down a little ways down the screen with some of the layout options. We'll do a vertical arrangement, give it a little bit of a bump down. And then we shall... we'll put a table arrangement in here, and I'll explain what the table arrangement is in a minute here. We're just going to kind of put some things in here, and I'm actually going to move that over to there, and we're going to add two labels. So this is just things that you're just follow with me here for a second, not too hard, obviously, just kind of do what I'm doing. And we're just going to make these labels static. We're not going to change anything about them. We're just going to type one thing in. This is going to be username. And that'll display there, obviously. And then a password. So kind of what's going on, this black box here, I placed that in there to bump the stuff down because I don't really want it at the top of the screen. I kind of wanted it a little more in the center of the screen, per se. So what I did is I put this vertical arrangement in here to bump the stuff down. So when you actually place in, you will not see this black box. When you load your app, this is going to appear as white space. So you don't need to worry about that. That's just something to add more graphical appeal to it, so to speak. So, and then you saw me add in a table arrangement. I added a table arrangement. It's default 2x2. You can kind of see that. 2 columns, 2 rows. So I just put two labels, and then the two input boxes next to each other. And then I put a button below it. So these labels are, like I said, a lot of things in the App Inventor interface you can change over here in the properties section. But if you also wanted to change it based on actions that somebody's doing in an app, like maybe they click a button, maybe you wanted to change what something says, you can do that in the blocks editor But we'll get into more of that stuff later. Anyways, for now, I just typed in username, I typed in password, and then I put the boxes, and then I put this button, and then we're good to go. That's actually all we're going to do with graphical user interface as far as setting it up for this time, other than changing this button. We're going to change this button, and it's going to say login now. So that's it. That's the graphical user interface in a nutshell. Very, very simple and straightforward. The rest of this episode or tutorial is going to take place in the actual blocks editor because we have to create the logic for the program. So how do we do that? How do we create the logic for this program? Well, kind of what we have to do is we have to go ahead and basically what's going to happen is, or what's going to happen with this program is, let's see, oh, it's not, I renamed it login. I want to rename the actual, so if you wanted to rename the button 1, you can rename it login, and it will actually show up in the blocks editor now as when login.click. It's kind of nice, so if you have like 30 buttons or something like that, you need to know what each button does, and button 1, button 2, button 3, they're not very clever names. So I like to do, rename my buttons however I do that. So again, how do you do that? You click on the button, or over here in the components menu, and you just click rename, and it will actually allow you to rename the component. That is different than renaming what's inside of the box. If you actually want to change what's in the box, I have to go over here and type login in the text field. But anyways, so everything that's going to happen in this episode is going to be focused around a button click. So when the button is clicked, I want it to do something. What do I want it to do? Well, when you hit a login button on any kind of screen, what usually happens? If the password and stuff is correct, then stuff's going to work out for you. If it's not correct, stuff isn't going to work out for you. You're not going to be allowed to enter the app. So maybe you have some home security codes or something like that inside of an app, and you don't want anybody to be able to access it, obviously, because if they can, then it's going to cause some problems for you. So we don't want anybody to be able to get into our code, so we have to check stuff. So the first thing what we're going to do, and it's not clearly visible here, but in your app, whenever you click on a box with your finger, whenever you tap it on the touch screen for the tablet, what's going to happen is it's going to pull up the keyboard, and it's going to allow you to type something on the keyboard into the text field box. So we don't actually have to do any of that stuff, managing the keyboard. That's all done for us in the background. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But we do have to worry about, after something's typed into both of these fields, when the login button happens, we do have to do a comparison operation in order to figure out, whether we should let the person in or not. So we do have to handle that stuff. So actually how we handle that is we do under text box, we're looking for textbox1.text. So this is actually going to return whatever's in the text box to us. And the password text box, we also have to look for password textbox1.text. So whenever the login button is clicked, whatever's in those fields, we want to pull whatever information is in those fields and do a comparison operation on it. So in order to do that, we actually want to do a let's see, return true if both numbers. That's for number comparison. We don't want to do number comparison. Test. Yes, this is the one I wanted. This is the under logic section. You're looking for the equals parameter. So under equals, we actually want to do something like this. We want to say if textbox1.text is equal to, and we're going to pull this block out, and we're actually going to copy and paste this. And we're actually going to copy and paste this as well. And go away there, little guy. All right, cool. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to plug both of these sockets in to these things. And now we have to enter in. Now, whatever I enter in, this is a text box. So whatever I enter in, it's going to check and see if something's equal to that string. So in this app, I'm going to make my password equal to, I don't know, pass. And I'm going to make my username equal to user. Users. I just want user. Easier the better for this example. All right. So, whenever I click login, I'm going to check to see. Well, actually, I'm not even going to check to see right now. In order to check, we actually have to do something with this. So I'm going to pull that down now. But whenever the login button's clicked, this stuff is actually going to go underneath here. But what's going to happen? Login. When the login button's clicked, it's going to check something. What do we want it to check? Well, it's actually going to check two things. It's going to check and see if the password text box is equal to text and the username text box is equal to user. And actually, you know what? It doesn't matter, but I'm going to flip these around because I have the username text box first and the password text box second. And then I'm going to plug that socket into there. So, what's going to happen now? Whenever the login button is clicked, it's going to check and it's going to return whatever's in the text box here, and that's going to get plugged into this variable location. And it's going to check and see if that's equal to user. And then if it is, well, that's good. Then we have one part of the statement that's true. Since this is an AND operation, both of the statements need to be true in order for this block to execute whatever's down here beneath the arrow. So if this is true, well, you know, that's good and all, but it doesn't really matter if you're true unless this is true as well. So it's going to do a second check. Whatever's in the password text box, it's going to check and see if that's equal to pass. If both of these conditions are true, just like I said before, it's going to execute what's beneath the arrow. If not, then it will fail and it won't execute what's beneath the arrow. Actually, if it failed, we can actually plug in what's called an else statement. So if this fails, then it will do what's down here. We don't have to put that there, but we're going to for my example here. We're going to actually put something there, and we're actually make something happen. So if this succeeds, then I want to do something. If that succeeds, if it fails and this executes, then you know something's wrong. We want to tell the user that they have something's wrong. So I actually kind of lied to you. I said we weren't going to replace anything else in the application, but we're going to place a label. And the reason we're going to place a label is because we need to know if we typed things incorrectly. So if we don't do that, we're not going to know. So we're actually going to look for set label 3.text. Remember, whenever I call this statement inside of the blocks editor, it's the same as clicking on this and going in here and putting the text in for here. This is just the default text though. That's what's default. When the screen is initialized, that's what's going to show up. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way because I can change it with a call to set label 3.text to something else. So remember that. I can change anything in the app. I can make buttons invisible. I can do all kinds of crazy stuff. The blocks editor is the most powerful part of this, is what makes this program so powerful. The designer is just, what are things going to look like when I initialize stuff? So whenever I click the button to go to this screen, this is what's initially going to show up. It doesn't mean it has to stay that way. It just means this is what's actually going to show up at first. So remember that, kind of. Well, not kind of. Do remember that. Set label 3.text to. We're just gonna say, correct. Yeah, we'll just say correct. Nice and easy. And if not, we'll just say invalid. I don't know. So if this passes, it'll say correct. If it fails, it'll say invalid. All right, simple enough. That's actually all there is to it. I mean, that was simple stuff, but that's really all there is to creating a user screen. You can make it more complex, like with what's called an else if statements. I could plug else if statements and say if the password's true or the username's correct, but the password's wrong, say password's incorrect or something. Or if one of the other one is true and the other one's false, you could say no such user exists or something like that to that effect. But this will do for this example for what we need. And wow, I dragged it out. That's not what I wanted to do. All right. Now we want to connect to our actual tablet. So to do that, okay, oops. I'm not going to show you guys me actually connecting because hopefully you remember how to do that last time. Just download the AI2 companion and then scan the QR code or enter in the code on the screen, and voila. We are now connected, and I can see my stuff here on my screen, and you guys will be able to see it here in just a minute too. There it is, right there on the screen. I can enter in hints too, by the way. I didn't get into any of that stuff. I should have just deleted the hint because I don't know why I put it there. But if maybe I'm going to forget my username, I can display, like, I don't know, maybe you have a dog's name, your dog's name is Rover or something like that. Maybe your hint could be dog, and obviously you know it's Rover or something like that. When I click on this box, the hint is actually going to disappear as I type in text. So, oh, there, okay, cool. So the keyboard showed up. I was wondering what was going to happen there for a second. All right. So now, if I go ahead and I type in user, well, actually, we'll just type it in first correctly, I guess. And then pass. So I hope you guys realize or see that something, as I'm typing in the password, it's turning it into those regular little black dots. It does show the last character. I believe there is actually a way to disable that inside of password text box. Where is that at? I believe specifies whether the component should be visible on the screen. No. Should be a way to make the enabled. No, I thought there was a way to actually make it to where you could not see the last letter typed in. I'm pretty sure there is. I'm just not seeing it. I don't know. Maybe there isn't. Maybe I'm remembering that from some other program because I do some other language stuff. But I thought you could do that. I don't want to waste any more of your guys' time. So, all right, back to our app here. Here, yeah. All right. I left that say text for label 3. I could have deleted it to where it's just blank and it would have been white space until something actually happens. But as soon as I click login, we should see the text for label 3 stuff change at the bottom of the page. And we do. We see it change to correct, which is what we told it to display when the username and the password is correct. Now, let's take a look at what happens when it's wrong. Now I have PAS. When I say login, it should give me the other thing, invalid, because not both of them are correct. Only one of them are correct. So why is this useful for us, guys? Because like I said before, if I wanted to add another screen to my app, which I haven't taught you guys how to do yet, I haven't taught you guys how to add more screens to your apps. But when you do that, maybe you want to move from your login screen to your actually protected information screen. Whenever you make that transition, you don't want somebody maybe to be able to see your information right off the bat. When you click on the app, boom, your information's available for everybody to see. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want that stuff kind of secured. So, kind of what happens then is you make it to where it isn't secured. It is secured. So that's why we add the password screen. And I could go ahead and replace this with something else. Like I could say, later on when we go to a new screen, you're actually going to say open, you're going to add in the open another screen block, and you're going to type in what the name of your screen is into one of these little text fields, and it'll take you to the new screen, which could have whatever you have posted on the screen, your password information, all that stuff. If you wanted to create an app where all your passwords were saved and you only had to remember, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe you only want to remember one password, but you could have a trillion different passwords on a trillion different websites. You can go ahead and create your app where you could plug in, almost like a text pad, plug in your own information and save it in an area, and it would be displayed for your eyes only to see if you typed in just your one password that you need to remember. Good idea for an app. Any of you guys out there maybe that want to do something like that. But anyways, that is how you create a simple little user interface. I don't know how much time of yours I have wasted. It's 19 minutes. Is there anything else I could do that would just be really short? You know, I really feel like I'm robbing you guys by just having some text show up on the screen and telling you correct or invalid. What can we do really fast here? Man, oh man, it's hard to think on the spot like that. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna, you know what the heck? We're gonna add a screen. We're not gonna add anything to it. I'm just gonna call it screen 2. I'm gonna leave it what they say it is. All right. I'm just gonna show you guys how to go to a new screen because I don't wanna. I don't know. I don't know. Why not? You know. Why not teach you guys how to go to a new screen? This actually gives you something, you know, like useful that you can do. We'll leave the invalid there, and I'm actually going to just go ahead and delete whatever's in this text field down here. Just say blah, blah, blah. I'm going to teach you guys about notifiers later, which is this component over here. And actually, that would probably be more how you would want to do this. Instead of with the label saying invalid, maybe you want to use a notifier to let somebody know. That's kind of like something that pops up on the screen for a few seconds and then goes away. Maybe that would be how you'd want to do that. But like I said, not what we're going to talk about this time. Right. Now, whenever stuff is done correctly, we want to open another screen. What is the screen name? We named it Screen 2. This actually took me a little while to figure out because I had to figure it out on my own. There wasn't really any good explanations out there on how to make multi-screen apps, or if there were, I think I actually did find one, but it still wasn't like satisfying to me on how to do stuff with it or whatever else. So I kind of pretty much had to teach myself a little bit how to do most of this program. I had to just kind of figure out on my own just by plugging blocks around and doing stuff, and I just kind of picked it up. It's not really hard to figure out, but sometimes maybe you guys just need a little bit of a push to figure out how to create your own apps. So now what this app is going to do is exactly what it's going to do. I mean, it's going to do now. I got to change this to make it to where it'll reload the app on my screen. Okay, there we go. So the reason I made a quick color change there was because sometimes in order for the application to refresh, you have to change something in the GUI interface in order for it to actually update your app on the screen. So whenever it's in companion mode, that's kind of what you have to do. So now, just like we had before, I'm going to type in the incorrect password and stuff, blah, 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 and log in. We get the invalid thing, just like we did before. But something different is going to happen when I type in the correct information. User and pass, that's our username and our password. And whenever I say log in, boom, we're taken to, you can see screen 2 up there, kind of, except for this thing being in the way, which I don't know why I left that in the way this whole time. I apologize for that. But you can see now it says screen 2. Yay! You know, where we go. We're on our second screen, and maybe here we have all our passwords and stuff, usernames listed for a bunch of different websites, and our email password, social security number, blah, 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 you know, whatever. So there you go. There you have it. That's how you create a simple screen or second screen. We'll get more into this stuff later as we get into more complicated apps and more useful apps, so to speak. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I promise next time we will make this application. Actually, we are going to be working with the same application next time. We're going to make it a little more complicated by using databases. So I can't wait. I'm excited to show you guys more about this program, and I will see you guys in your next AI Inventor tutorial.